Welcome to Fulfilling This Belly Sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Like that.
God Morgen, and happy Thor's Day to you. Today we celebrate the Norse god Thor by using him as a role model for our mental strength, not as much our physical. Today we've looked at, this week we've looked at wisdom, we've looked at the courage, and we've looked at mental control. Today I want to talk about the strength. How we can make decisions and stick to them. How we can make choices in our lives to be positive, to be happy, to be loved, to love, and to stick to those decisions. Before we get started today, I want to give a huge thank you to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed. I hope that you have found some resonance in my words and my messages, either on the video platforms that we distribute on or the audio. So by all means, if you haven't had an opportunity to like, follow, and subscribe, please do so, as it helps to distribute this message even further out there to those who could really need to hear these words. I want to give a huge shout out to New Reality TV. Newrealitytv.com is a streaming channel dedicated to the kaleidoscope of perspectives that along our spiritual journey can give us maybe that piece of intellect we've been searching for that will help us to find peace, harmony, and love. For those of you who may have questions about my message, my teachings, anything about me, including asking me a question that may be stirring your mind, visit my life coaching site at norsewhispers.com. And certainly there you can also sign up and or engage in my life coaching service there at norsewhispers.com/coaching. If you happen to have any extra coins jingling in the pocket, by all means, hit up our tip jars. The links are located throughout this video, both at the beginning and in the end. You're welcome to visit there and donate what you can. Every little bit helps us to distribute both the electronic message and certainly the in-person visits that we make. So please give as you can. Today we're talking about the strength of Thor and how that applies to our modern day life. Now, many people think that Thor, of course, played by Chris Hemsworth in the Avengers series, but in reality, Thor was a very powerful god. He has a lot of physical strength, and we find quite often in the sagas where Thor's kind of go-to action is, of course, using Mjolnir to combat the giants, whether they be any frost giants left, of which there were very little, if any, once Odin and his brothers had completed that task. But giants in general, and of course the giants represent those obstacles and challenges in our lives that we will face. We have no choice. Remember, we're kind of in this interchange throughout reality where we're kind of intermingling with other people's realities. In other words, we're all kind of just crossing threads as we move through this experience that we have of a physical lifetime. It's very critical that we understand that throughout all the sagas, when we speak about Thor, and in most cases we're speaking about his physical strength and his ability to wage a combat if necessary, we also see him as a thinker, as someone who's able to dedicate himself to a particular objective. He sets his mind to something, and that's what he does. And there's nothing going to stand in his way. This really is what Thor is all about. So when we think about how Thor plays into our lives, let's think about how we set our minds to do things and hold that line and be able to maintain that thought process, that belief system, whatever it may be. I'm always entertained when speaking with people whom are more interested in inclusion in society, in some social group, than they are their own values. And I always ask of them, why do you think that way? What's so important about inclusion that you would forego your own beliefs, values, virtues? Why would you throw that away simply for this opportunity to be included in this social group? And there's a myriad of answers, but nonetheless, what many people have a tendency to do is kind of go with the flow, whatever that happens to be, whatever social group they're a part of or want to be a part of. And they're putting aside their own values, their own virtues, their own belief systems. In many cases, they're putting them aside simply to become included. They want to be a part of this group. And so I'm entertained when, you see it in television and it's almost like it's an accepted piece. It's like this is how we're supposed to act. And we're kind of losing the idea of individuality. We're kind of making everything more or less vanilla so that we can all kind of whatever. And what we find is that in many cases, we don't harmoniously coexist. Why? Because we're trying too hard to meet someone else's bar. When we make decisions, when we come to these realizations of what we truly believe and what we truly feel is right in our own mind, in our own hearts, the idea is that we become our own advocate for that. We begin to process things more deeply. Many people say, well, why is it that wisdom comes with age? Well, this is one of the reasons, is because we slow things down a little bit. We take time to kind of ponder how this decision, how this situation fits with who we are authentically, who we are at our very core. This is so critical when it comes to making particularly life's decisions. As we look at our partners and our significant others, we kind of need to think about that in a much larger, longer term scale. All too often in this modern day world, I hear quite a bit about these practice marriages or, first time marriages that are ending in a dismal failure. And I'm like, why? Why are they doing this? After speaking with many of these couples who come and see me, I'm convinced they're trying to second guess the other one. So both parties within the marriage are trying to second guess the other one. So they find themselves at odds. Or another large group of these individuals simply wanted to please the other. They're trying to measure themselves to another bar, and when they realize that they can't, they struggle. Okay? So what we need to talk about and what we need to think about as far as our obtaining and maintaining our mental space using the spiritual energies of the ancestors is not be so convinced that this is the answer, that we need to measure up to someone else's bar. We need to establish our own bar and then measure ourselves to that, whatever that may be. Now, a lot of people say, well, that particular effect or trait or whatever doesn't really fit in our group. We don't want them. Well, okay, but let's think about it from the individual's perspective. Are they displaying some things just for the sake of trying to be included? Are we really giving them the benefit of the doubt? So there's a lot to know about this mental strength of the individual. So turning it back around to ourselves, let's look at what we know about us. Well, firstly and foremost, let's talk about, and we've spoken about it before, but the well of the self. And in the well of the self, as I've mentioned many times, is this pile of rocks at the bottom, which filters the energies that we submit through our sensory input or through our spiritual input, and it filters this to create the biochemistry that we recognize as emotion. Those rocks are placed by a multitude of people. Mostly, it starts when we start placing, when our parents, when we're very young children, we recognize some of the values. I see frequently where I find young men who are willing to hold the door for ladies, for elderlies, for others, just not because they have to, but because they feel that's the way it should be done. This is an amazing thing because we're thinking of others, and this individual is cognizant enough of other people. That's a value. That's a rock. Why? Because I'm showing respect to others. That's a rock. Who put that in there? Most often than not, those are our parents. Our parents are going to put that value in our well at a fairly young age. That rock will continue to expand as we get older, and we see others doing it. Right? So we see throughout society, whatever society we find ourselves living in, we see, remember, visual, we're going to see, or we're going to hear, we're going to understand that these other people are holding the doors for us. And I know this is a very trivial thing, but it represents a value within those rocks. There's a multitude of values that are placed into our well through our parents. Now, at a fairly young age, we're going to accept rocks from other people as well. Any of those people who have some level of authority that we have given them, inadvertently or not, understandingly or not. These would be mostly elders, siblings in general, uncles, aunts, grandparents, all of these individuals whom have some level of deferred authority. In other words, we've trusted our parents, and our parents trust these other people. Therefore, they're allowed to put in rocks into our well. Now, are all values that our elders give us, does it work for us? we have to remember that here on the physical realm, the context of time applies to this as well. So as equally important as receiving the values from our elders, we have to kind of look at society, particularly the society that we're a part of, and determine if that value still works. Now, there are some core values. We know we can look back at the Norse. The Norse celebrated 9 noble virtues that were kind of the cornerstone to Norse life: courage, honor, truthfulness, industrialness, hospitality, generosity. So there's a lot of these values that are assigned, that were assigned, I should say, that are kind of universal. They're not really regional, based on, some very localized communities and regions, but they're kind of more universal. We see a lot of these that are going to traverse across a multitude of cultures. We see it in the Norse. We see it in some of the Scottish and certainly the Irish. We find it in the modern day military, particularly those in the special forces. So we're going to see a lot of these virtues kind of transcend. So when these rocks are being placed in our well by our parents, by our particularly our earlier development years, placed in there by people with authority, we're going to grow, and we're going to grow them. And they're going to become kind of the cornerstones of who we are. Now, as we get older, that peer list is going to change, obviously. We're going to have more friends, some friends that are going to be more influential than others, obviously. We may look to, modern society looks to some of the societal role models, athletes, professional athletes, or entertainers, the entertainment industry, with movie stars and the like. And so we're going to accept some of those. Now, there's 2 real differences in the rocks that we're going to get from that second group. One is we recognize the individual, so we really want to be like them. So we're going to create rocks of our own. This is a very big part. Now, in some cases, the second part of that group is just accepting them as the authority figure and allowing them to put rocks in our well. This is very similar. Probably see it quite frequently in modern monotheism, where you have the mega churches, and the pastors are preaching, you should, thou shall, all of those, right? That's influential energies that are trying to create rocks in your well. Okay? You still have the choice at that point to say, no, I don't want that value. I don't need that value. I don't like that value. Now, many of these energies, these influential energies, are going to come masked. It's very infrequent that you're going to receive influential energy that is just really obvious. They're trying to control you right from the beginning, right? You are. Most often than not, it's pretty sugar-coated. They kind of explain the benefit. They're going to walk through everything. They're going to try to talk you into. This is influential energy attempting to put rocks in your well. The beautiful thing about this is that you still have a choice as to accept the rock, or just as importantly, is if you do accept the rock, try it around, kick the tires, and feel that it doesn't fit with the rest of your rocks, you can take it out. You can pitch it. You don't place any value in that virtue or in that belief. Okay? We should always test our belief systems. That's kind of what life is about testing those belief systems we have based on different scenarios. Take a little bit of time, do some intrinsic reflection, and kind of evaluate what it means to us. All right, I need to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about how you can use this strength demonstrated by Thor to make those decisions in your life to find happiness, to find joy, to find harmony. But first, we have to do it with ourselves before we can do it with others. Okay? So we'll talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me. It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
Welcome back, and thank you for taking that quick break with me, and thank you so much for looking at, if nothing else, momentarily, New Reality TV. You won't be disappointed. Check it out, newrealitytv.com. Moment to call out Karmic Debt, who's joined us this morning on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're not a subscriber, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. You can subscribe to us on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all those places, not to mention all the audio platforms as well. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. So today we're talking about our strength, and we're talking about using the model demonstrated by the Norse god Thor. And that's really what Thor represents to those of us who believe in him. So let's talk about what that means to us, making decisions. Now, there have been many decisions that we've made throughout our lives, some of which are probably better than others. We may have decided New Year's resolution a couple years ago, let's get fit. Let's go. We're going to get fit. And by mid-January, we're just too busy for that. We just don't have time, right? This occurs quite frequently. Many of our little decisions. Well, I'm not going to smoke today. By mid-January, we've already got smokes or whatever it may be, whatever our addiction is. Even if it's not a full-blown addiction, sometimes it can be as simple as, I'm not going to talk badly about myself anymore to myself. Yet, 2 weeks, we're already back in criticizing ourselves for making some perceived misstep. We're going to make mistakes. It's part of life. It's part of living. It's part of growing, is that you make mistakes. If you are so terrified of making those mistakes, you have a tendency to be more tentative or worrisome about making steps in our lives, when in fact, we just live. Just embrace the life that you're given, the experiences that you get to have. Think about it. During a trance not that long ago, when I was communicating with my ancestors and we were talking about life, and I wanted to go at 120 miles an hour, and my ancestors reminded me that I've accomplished 65. I don't need to go 120. That's someone else's bar. That's not mine. I'm comfortable 65, right? When we look at the speedometer on our cars tell us that we can go very fast, or our motorcycles. It says we can go really fast. Do we need to? Probably not. Most of the time in town, we're driving at 25, 35, 45, 55, somewhere in there, right? And we're just... One of the things my ancestors really taught me is that instead of whining, that's what they call it, instead of whining that I'm not at 120, be proud that I've accomplished 65. So think about it as in, think of all that you've accomplished and all that you've, just really conquered at this point in your life, versus not worrying about what you haven't. The universe will bring us those things at which we are ready to receive. Even though we may not think we're ready to receive, the universe will deliver those things that we are ready to receive. The rune, Yira, which is a J in modern English, kind of looks a little bit like that. Yira says that there's a season for everything. Everything comes when we are ready for it to come. The winter season, the planting season, all of the different seasons of the year, Yira, come when it's time to do that. When the foliage, when the Mother Yord is ready for her winter's nap, it'll happen. When Mother Yord is ready to wake up from that nap, it will happen. Much like your breath. When you think about an inhale, what does an inhale kind of force? Well, it kind of forces us to exhale, because we can only inhale so much, and then we have to exhale. So one is driving the other, right? And that's kind of the cyclic events of Yira. Very much the same way with our lives. Our lives will bring in that which we are ready to receive, that which is being driven to happen. Do you have control over it? No. Do you have control over your response to it? Absolutely. And that's the key to living, is how we're responding. One of the stories I was told as a child is the story of the Norse sisters and the baby of the Norse sisters, Verdandi. Verdandi sewed a tapestry of our lives, and she sewed this tapestry to demonstrate how we responded to events within our lives. This tapestry was what Skal would use to then evaluate which hall we would reside in until Ragnarok. Verdandi sewed the tapestry that showed how we responded to experiences in our lifetime. Not the experience themselves, not whether we succeeded or failed, but how we emotionally responded to those events. It was a very big thing that we applied our virtues, our authentic self, to these events and to our response to these events. So super critical. So what I want us to think about today is sometimes we're not always going to be strong. We're going to have emotional challenges that we're going to have to face. So we're not going to be 100%. We're not going to be ready for battle all the time. I encourage you to find totems or affirmations that will help you during those times. Whatever those affirmations happen to look for, or whatever they look like for you. Whether it be a bracelet that reminds us that time is on our side, whether it be the hammer of Thor, Mjolnir, and we're recognizing that we have the strength to power through whatever it is, whatever it is that will help you power through those weaker moments, find that part. Seek our authentic self and move forward and face our challenges head on. Okay? For those of you who may have questions, things still stirring in your heart and your mind that you're just not quite sure about, make sure you hit up my website, norsewhispers.com. There, you can scroll all the way to the bottom, look to the left, and there you'll see a big orange button that says Ask Me a Question. Throw those questions up there. Ask those questions, and I'll do my absolute best to respond. If I do decide to make a show about it, I'll send you a free t-shirt. So it's a win-win. You get a free t-shirt out of the deal, and we may get an answer to your question. So check that out, and we will see you again tomorrow, where we'll embrace the energy management, the cosmic energy management of Freya, the goddess of love, the goddess of war. Had a lot to do with management of energy within her mind, within her heart, and certainly within the environment that she was in. So we'll talk about how we can use her example to heal ourselves, to make sure that we're where we want to be. All right? So enjoy your Thors Day. Find those totems, find those affirmations, and we'll see you again tomorrow, where we embrace Freya. Love and light, my friends.
I'm watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.